Skateboarding is weird, and one of the ways in which it is weird is how your style and preference can dramatically change. And I don't mean phases either. I've been through all sorts of phases. As a beginner, I started with freestyle, turned around and went to ollie flat ground and park ledge tricks, meandered between freestyle and park, became obsessed with freestyle again, missed the park, came back to freestyle. And I think that's totally normal and fine. For me, skateboarding is all about experimenting and exploring, both expressing myself and pushing myself. The bizarre part is how my opinion on individual tricks has changed. There are a handful of tricks that I seriously thought I would never bother trying to get good at, and even worse, there are a handful of tricks that I claimed I didn't like. And while it's embarrassing to admit this, some tricks I hated just because they were hard. Manuals and pogos are a perfect example of this. I had zero grasp of how to manual or pogo in the beginning, and it seemed like the mountain I had to climb over to get to them was simply too high. So I truly resigned myself to just not bothering with them. In fact, I tricked myself into thinking I wasn't interested in them. Probably subconsciously in order to protect my ego, since not being able to do a trick I wanted to learn would have been quite a hit to my self-esteem, especially back then when I was way less confident in my ability to learn new tricks. But the better I got at skateboarding in general, the more interested I became in these tricks that I hated. I'd watch really good manual skaters doing flips and 180s into and out of mani pads, and it just looked like so much fun. So I eventually did start to put effort into them, and you might have been here to watch some of that progress. I've been thinking about this recently because I absolutely love manuals now. I've progressed quite a bit in my opinion, and now I'm working shove-its into and out of them. Honestly, it's quite embarrassing and humbling to admit that I didn't like them because I thought they were hard. Though admittedly, I learned nothing because my current hatred is going 100% into spacewalks. I hate them, I detest them, they are terrible because I cannot do them. And I'm trying to use that discontent to motivate myself. Another trick that I felt similarly about was the fakie backside big spin, which once again I am obsessed with now. I would literally do anything for a regular backside big spin. It's the biggest part of why I'm working so hard on the 360 shove-its. But in the beginning, disliking the fakie backside big spin was 100% an ego issue for me. I just could not wrap my mind around it, and I think that was frustrating. I couldn't even tell which way the board and which way the body were rotating. At first, I thought they might have been rotating opposite to one another, and it actually took me a very long time to figure this out, even when I was learning the trick. I don't know what it was, but there was something about the trick that my mind just couldn't understand. Which is ridiculous, because you just both rotate in the same direction, but I couldn't do it. Just something up here didn't click with that trick, and thus I resigned to hating it. And while I'm confessing my ego-related complexes, another trick that I wasn't that interested in was actually shove-its. Not because they were too hard, but because they were too simple. In the beginning, shove-its and rotating tricks in general, and maybe even manuals to a certain extent, didn't look as impressive to me. I think I was too busy looking past them at 180s and kickflips and 50-50 grinds to realize just how beautiful they were, because now they blow my mind. A clean, crispy shove-it looks phenomenal. I don't know what it is. Well, I guess that's not completely true reading the script. It was my ego. That was the problem. And that was the problem. All of these tricks felt like they were either too hard for me to reach them ever, or they felt too simple. And yet somehow they've turned into what I can only describe as my most treasured tricks. I could drill shove-it variations, big spin. I'd like to say big spin variations, but I can only do one. I'm trying another, but we'll move on. And manual variations. they literally went from my most hated tricks to my favorite tricks. All thanks to my ego and, well, being able to try to put that to the side. And the best part is that this video was originally supposed to be just a fun, lighthearted, oh, I used to hate these tricks and now they're my favorite ones, haha. And you never know what tricks you're gonna like in the future. You might change your mind or your preference or your style. But it turned into a major therapeutic, vulnerable, embarrassing admission of my own ego. But it's all true. So in the end, I'm really happy that I was able to admit this to myself and to you. And I truly hope that if your ego's getting in the way of learning any tricks, you can just put it aside. You never know. The trick that you hate right now might be your next favorite trick.